So, it's almost Christmas time.
Yes, this time of year always make me remember.
This is by far the best Christmas special Nickelodeon ever produced. Here's why. Arnold's Christmas is an emotional masterpiece. From the writing, character work, voice acting, pacing, music, and more, it exudes genuine Christmas spirit and honestly might be the purest Hey Arnold episode creator Craig Bartlett and his team ever made. If you're familiar at all with this series, you know that in addition to unique character designs and humor, it's also known for how sincerely heartfelt it could be. Hey Arnold wasn't afraid to be reflective, take its time telling its stories, or be downright sad with no easy answer to complex scenarios for the audience watching at home. The world these characters inhabited felt lived in. The characters themselves, while embellished of course, had an authenticity in their interactions that always reminded me of kids I knew from school or how I viewed adults back then. With a cartoon this sturdy in that foundation, a Christmas episode seemed like an easy home run. But Arnold's Christmas raised the bar and told a story that when you bring up to fans, always elicits a warm reaction. The installment opens without the show's theme song, going straight to the title card and accompanied by composer Jim Lang's soft holiday chords. This is one of the rare episodes that didn't feature two separate stories. It was a full 24 minutes spinning the same yarn, which created a special atmosphere from the jump. Plus, it was the last produced of the first batch of shows, airing on December 11th, 1996. I love seeing the whole neighborhood enjoying the season. There's this magic to everything in that opening minute that just set the mood perfectly. The kids of PS 118 are out for Christmas break, and Helga has her eye on the ridiculously popular Nancy Spumoni's snow boots. While she's informed they're sold out all over the city, that doesn't deter her selfish holiday expectations of receiving them. At the boarding house, Arnold draws Mr. Wynn for Secret Santa and attempts to inquire about what he might want without drawing suspicion. Arnold remarks to Gerald about how sad Mr. Wynn is around the holidays and soon learns that many years ago, Wynn was separated from his daughter, Mai, when trying to flee Vietnam. American forces were leaving as many civilians gathered close to their helicopter in hopes of escaping the war-torn region. One of the Americans on board communicated there was only room for one of them. In a heartbreaking moment, Wynn hands his young daughter off to the soldier as the helicopter elevates into the sky and out of the country. Mr. Wynn tells Arnold it took him another 20 years to get to the United States, and he still hasn't found her, even though he's been living in the same city the soldier yelled out for years now.
Sometimes it is so difficult. I almost give up hope. But I never stop thinking about her. I will never stop trying.
Determined to reunite Wynn with his daughter, Arnold sets out to the Federal Office of Information on Christmas Eve. With Gerald at his side, he finds Mr. Bailey, the department supervisor, and inquires about Mai. Annoyed and busy, Bailey sternly sends them off before his wife rings him about picking up his family's Christmas gifts. Overhearing, Arnold offers to do the shopping for him in exchange for Bailey looking into Mr. Wynn's situation. The grump begrudgingly agrees. Arnold and Gerald travel around the city with Bailey's list and cash, picking up every item. Except one, the Nancy Spumoni snow boots. They're laughed at all over town for even asking for a pair. Disappointed, they return to Bailey's office one gift short. Acting like a true curmudgeon, the man refuses to honor their deal since Arnold couldn't get his hands on a pair of those snow boots, which his daughter is apparently desperate for. Listening in outside, Helga is clued in on Arnold's plight and returns home to discover her mother somehow found a pair of the snow boots for her Christmas gift. Ecstatic at first, Pataki's conscience intercedes as she's been searching for the perfect gift to give Arnold, and these boots may just lead to the one thing the football head actually wants. After struggling with the moral quandary, she catches Mr. Bailey on his way out of the office and hands over the boots, pleading with him to search for Wynn's daughter.
For pity's sake, are you that cold? Look into your heart.
On Christmas morning, the boarding house residents exchange gifts, but there doesn't seem to be one for Mr. Wynn. About to admit his failure, Arnold is interrupted by the doorbell. Grandpa then ushers in a fully grown Mai Wynn. Father and daughter embrace in an emotional reunion as Arnold ponders how this was possible. Gerald tells him to not question miracles, and a Christmas angel must be looking out for him.
Merry Christmas, Arnold.
The story is credited to Craig Bartlett, Steve Viksten, and Joe Ansolabert, with Viksten receiving the sole writing title. Along with the previously mentioned names, he was a co-developer and co-producer on the show, also providing the voice of Oscar Kokoschka in addition to various smaller characters. The whole team deserves praise on this one, but the late Viksten's teleplay moves from scene to scene seamlessly and never once compromised the emotion of the story. Receiving the directing credit was Jamie Mitchell, who was heavily involved in the first season as a supervising producer/director. He also worked on 5 Season 2 installments. Jim Lang's music for this series was one of the most memorable aspects of its run. His jazz-style accompaniment is well known to fans, but once in a while he'd bring out more subtle emotional cues. His work on Arnold's Christmas is up there with The Journal as some of his best on the show. The music did much to establish the theme of the holiday season while weaving in a melancholy vibe that, many times, naturally fits into that time of year. Lang's work in the flashback also showcased the large range this story had. Still, it's unmistakably a Hey Arnold score. The episode was not completely devoid of comedy, as Oscar rigging Secret Santa is still quite funny and on brand for the character.
Kokoschka, you bum! You wrote your name on all the slips!
Okay, it was a joke. A Christmas joke, eh?
How the retailers react to Arnold's request for the Nancy Spumoni snow boots also still gets a chuckle out of me.
A pair of Nancy Spumoni snow boots.
We've been sold out of those boots for a month. If you want to put your name on a waiting list, I could get you a pair by, say, the 4th of July.
Where's your Christmas spirit?
I guess that joke was hot in '96. Helga's search for Arnold's perfect Christmas gift while still mocking him every chance she got also lightened the mood when we needed it. Just another example of why the pacing in this episode, and the series in general, was so good. They knew when to change the mood to keep everything feeling fresh and moving along. Humanizing Mr. Wynn went a long way to show us that any character can become more complex once focused on. This was only the 6th episode Wynn appeared in, and he'd already had an all-time great moment.
Play ball! Play ball! Play ball! Play ball! Play ball! Play ball!
He'd get more time to shine later in the series as well, but this is easily the highlight for the character. Bowen Coleman gives one hell of a vocal performance. From Wynn's standard eccentricities to the narration of his flashbacks, longing words about his lost daughter, and their reunion, it all felt incredibly authentic.
I would give anything to see her again, to know that she is happy.
That was likely because Coleman himself was a Vietnamese refugee and related heavily with the material. The war and country it takes place in is implied but never outright identified in the episode itself. According to a 2021 interview with Craig Bartlett, this was because of the uphill battle with Nickelodeon executives who thought the story was already asking a lot for a kids' TV show. But within the confines of the story, this actually works very well. Mr. Wynn is explaining all this to a child with likely no knowledge of that conflict from decades prior. Thus, his labeling of the story as complicated and taking place many years ago in a country far away actually makes a lot of sense in context. The flashback is artfully done, with watercolor-style backgrounds that give way to the shadows of wartime danger, and ultimately, perhaps the most heartbreaking scene in the history of Nickelodeon programming.
I had to make the most difficult decision of my life. I knew I had to do the best thing for Mai. As soon as I could, I would get out of the country and find her again.
I'll be honest, I still tear up at this scene. The visuals, music, and Coleman's line readings make for a genuine feeling tragedy. We were in Arnold's shoes in that moment. The empathy this character always had was his greatest strength, and it's put on full display with his following actions. From the second he draws Mr. Wynn for Secret Santa, Arnold knows finding a gift will be a challenge. After the flashback sequence, he found his purpose and begins the journey that leads us to Mr. Bailey, an obvious ode to George Bailey from It's a Wonderful Life, but this guy seems more like a Scrooge at first. Voiced by the memorable Vincent Schiavelli, Bailey fills the role of plot obstacle very well.
It would take hours, maybe even days. I can't do it at a time like this.
I love how Arnold and Gerald find him in his back office after they walk past a staff Christmas party. Details like that make this world feel more real. Speaking of Gerald, he's by Arnold's side throughout the whole situation. He even helps him gather Bailey's gifts and is there with wise words when Win and his daughter reunite. He doesn't always share Arnold's optimism and altruism, but he trusts his best friend. This strengthened both characters and their bond. The real hero of Arnold's Christmas ends up being Helga. She was often a wonderfully complex character, shifting from her secret love of Arnold to her usual aggressive demeanor and square-peg dealings with her family. Here, she has a B story that intertwines perfectly into the main arc. She legitimately wanted those snow boots, and the conversation she has with herself after she gets them is peak monologuing Helga.
Another moral dilemma? Oh, what's the right thing to do?
When she confronts Mr. Bailey, Francesca Marie Smith delivers one of her best scenes as the character.
We've got a choice here. Either you and I work all night to find a certain lost daughter, or you can leave now. But if you leave now, that little football-headed kid will never believe in miracles again.
I love the idea that Helga, and even Gerald in the last scene, is trying to preserve Arnold's innocence in a way. They recognize that he's the best of them and don't want to harm his sense of empathy and generosity. It ties in perfectly to the Christmas angle and is a nice bow on Arnold's story. When he failed in his pursuit, somehow, from his perspective, the father and daughter were still brought back together. Mr. Win and Mai's exchange there is amazing. Not much is said, but the expressions on their faces and few words from the voice actors really brought this home.
Father?
Mai? Can't believe it. Is it really you?
Perfection. This little tale is indicative of Hey Arnold overall. Heartfelt sincerity presented in a way that kids could relate to, but gets better with time. I've said it before, I love this series now more than when it first aired. It's only since I've grown up that I've realized how much its life lessons and sense of wonder have stuck with me. To all the idealists among us, and maybe even more to those who aren't, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.